keep driving, you black spirit chucking piece of shit, Nigel.
Hello, everyone. I hear the wokies have been at it again. Oh, not the wokies, man. Oh, we're gonna teach them a lesson today. Oh, I'll round up some wokies and yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wokies, man. The woke elite have taken over Hollywood. They've besmirched all of these amazing IPs, all my childhood properties. Oh, no.
But now the hero, the chosen one, the hero of time, the caped crusader or whatever, Bill Burr has finally decided to grace us with some justice.
Or has he? Because we don't know, do we? Is it a shit film? Is it good? Does it have any significance or meaning? No or yes? I don't know.
What's happening in the movies, you know? It's all like gay men kissing. It makes me sick. These fanooks, I can't do it, Tony. Get that fucking shit out of my fucking movie.
Except for that Timothy Chalamet, because he's quite high.
Go to the new Snow White movie and it's a bunch of slack John fat.
Old Dads is the new movie from comedian Bill Burr, who directed and starred in this latest Netflix project. Sorry, I just wanted to bun my hair up because it's as neater this way. I don't look quite as much like Qui-Gon Jinn.
I don't sense anything.
Yeah, I'm just making my Old Dad's review at the moment. Wait, so I'm not supposed to make any mention of girls not liking this movie just because they have daddy issues? Okay, well. Hey guys, it's your favourite racist, sexist, alt-right YouTuber, Batcho. Woohoo! Enough of the skits that are clearly satirical, by the way, you fucknut. This film is centred around a middle-aged man played by Bill Burr. He's essentially playing himself because it is just Bill Burr. If you've seen Bill Burr's stand-up routine, you'll know some things about his life, like his anger issues and his relationship with his wife and son. He gets surprisingly personal and introspective during his stand-up, which is nice. I enjoy him as a comedian a lot. I think he's great and the best part of Mandalorian, probably. And this is a film about Bill Burr living in a modern LA, and he's surrounded by, for lack of a better term, woke people who through their silly, weird, arbitrary antics continually wind him up and aggravate him.
Is there a reason we always have two white men dominating the discussion in this room? That's not a white guy.
They express all of the stereotypical snowflake ideologies, and Bill Burr comes in and he goes, you know, well, that's so stupid, and I'm going to just deconstruct your whole idea there. And it's so cool because he just like owns the libs. So the film is going in and critiquing woke culture, and this is something that strangely has become a little bit taboo in media. Like, for instance, you get labelled as a right-winger if you critique Disney for all of these insincere race swap decisions in the new movies. Sure, there's people on the fringes of the right that just want to preserve this ultra-traditional white-dominated world, but really I think most people are nuanced. Most people who criticise woke stuff are coming from a very justified place, in my opinion. Despite all that, critiquing woke stuff has also become a little bit of a gimmick as well. Like, that's also become a popular crutch for comedians. However, I still do think this woke epidemic, if we could call it that, is something that needs critiquing. It's a very real thing in today's society, and there are a lot of aspects about it that I think are being overlooked. They're a bit dystopian and worrying. It seems to remove all nuance from every conversation and issue. The goalposts are moving further and further left, where you could be the most like rational, reasonable person in existence and you'd be considered a right-wing extremist. It discourages open discussion as people never hear the other side out anymore. But above all else, it is peddling these surface level platitudes that aren't actually rooted in any real firm morality. The philosophy of the woke ideology is all about not upsetting certain groups. It's all rooted in not wanting to seem like an arsehole, and that involves never being confrontational. And that isn't morality, that is people-pleasing. And while it is important to be considerate to different people, it is equally as important to be able to critique different people. Now, regardless, getting on with the actual fucking movie, the anti-woke critique in this is very on the nose and obvious, but even though it is like that, I do think that in parts it is fairly well balanced at the same time. The one thing that helps this is that Bill Burr is critiquing both outwardly and inwardly. He is critiquing himself as well as society, because this is a story about his character doing some introspection and growing as a person. However, a lot of this film does feel like an argument that Bill Burr is having with himself in the shower. A lot of cases of straw men arguments where he props up this stereotypical woke person and then he comes along and says, look how stupid you are, and he completely obliterates and destroys him. So it does feel fairly insistent in its message, like, look how terrible these woke people are.
So why don't you just go
go on Twitter and go share this story where you're the hero.
There's a moment where he gets told off for calling a woman a cunt, and then this other woman says that calling a woman a cunt is the same as calling a black man the N-word. And in that moment, you could just tell that Bill Burr probably saw some Karen tweet that on the internet, and he thought, oh, bloody hell, I'm going to put that in.
You know, other than the 400 years of slavery and continued systemic oppression, other than that, I think you're making a really solid point there.
Like, this is the most cynical outlook of a woke person that you could have. But to be fair, it is set in LA, so...
Your use of the word stumpy was a real trigger to me and my whole family.
A lot of this film could be categorized as anti-woke porn. Like, all of your dads are going to love it for sure.
It's like, well, it would have been.
Despite all this, I still do think that this is all coming from his own personal experiences. He's not just a hack who's talking about something popular, like he's observed some bad woke stuff in his life probably. There's also two other dad characters in this film, one played by Bobby Cannavale and the other played by Bokeem Woodbine. And it is a character piece about the old white dads of today, the older generation that aren't quite getting with the times. They're fairly good characters, but I'd say that Bobby Cannavale was playing it a little bit too over the top for me, because he's a really good actor. What he was doing here was just a bit too goofy. Each dad has their own unique fear relating to their older generation. Bobby Cannavale is obsessed with being young. Bokeem Woodbine has a deep fear of responsibility and commitment, becoming a father essentially. However, regardless of all this, a key thing that proves to be quite a big problem for this movie is that they go so overboard with the depiction of how bad woke stuff is. It makes that culture seem so awful and dystopian that it honestly makes the actions of Bill Burr's character all the more justified. And he's sort of vindicated for all of the minor misdemeanors he does, because he isn't really all that flawed. The character that I observed in the movie wasn't someone that desperately needed to change their ways, they just got a little bit angry a few times. If I was in this cesspit, this horrific environment that Bill Burr was in, I'd probably be going fucking crazy. What really needs to happen is he just needs to remove himself from this toxic and antagonizing environment.
You need to talk to someone about your anger.
You were late.
Couldn't find a spot.
We don't accept excuses.
Bill has a kid who goes to this school, and that school community is depicted to be almost like a fucking cult. He is definitely an angry dude, but he's not that bad. And there's a moment where he gets kicked out of his house after one big argument. Like, one heated argument with his wife is enough to do it. And he's living in a motel. This could secretly be a film about a man getting subtly gaslit by his entire community, almost like The Wicker Man or some shit. And if that's what it's doing, then it improves the whole movie in my head.
We view this more as a village than a school, and we firmly believe in the practice of restorative justice, or kakaka.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
This man is about as bad as Larry David from Curb Your Enthusiasm, wherein, okay, he's kind of a dick at times, but most of the problems are these unnecessary issues that stem from these overly sensitive losers in LA. One example from Curb Your Enthusiasm is he's at a big dinner party and he spills wine or something on himself, and then some woman there says, someone get a sponge, and then Larry says, why didn't you just get a fucking sponge? And then later in the episode, he has to make a formal apology to that woman for saying that. No one in LA wants to hear anything remotely negative said about them because they're all a bunch of pussies.
You're really the only person who has a problem with the water.
You know, it's just water. What are you so sensitive about?
I want you to go.
Getting kicked out?
Yeah, I think that
You're kicking me out?
Yeah, I think you should leave.
I can't believe that it is truly this bad in reality. It's probably not.
You feel your generation is more evolved.
Yeah, absolutely.
The state of LA culture in this film is what drives these characters to do the bad things that they do in the film. The worst thing the characters do is go to a strip club because they're all married men, or at the very least engaged. But again, that's after all of the gaslighting that Bill Burr's been put under. So the need for Bill Burr to have this redemption arc is kind of negated, because it's like, he's more or less okay, really.
You know, I understand that, and I'm sorry I made you feel that way.
Even though it is going overboard with the woke depictions, there are actually some aspects of the woke characters that I actually liked and appreciated. Because one or two of the woke characters that you start off hating eventually do become humanized by the end of the movie. There's this boss that they have that fires them after he secretly records a conversation that they have in a car that's deemed to be not politically correct or acceptable anymore. And it is alluding to something Orwellian there, where everyone's being surveyed and scrutinized for tiny misdemeanors. The goalposts goalposts of what is acceptable to say is constantly getting smaller and smaller. Later on, you find out that this woke boss also got fired for saying something inappropriate. This sort of zero tolerance attitude comes around to bite him in the arse. And it is a good point that's made where it's ultimately saying that everyone suffers under this weird regime of cancelling each other. It's a cautionary tale about people pleasing and constantly towing the line for tyrants, essentially, because you can compromise to these people as much as you want, but it'll never be enough, and you'll eventually just be able to say less and less. For these people, it's more about not getting in trouble and not looking bad than actual morality. It's the fear of looking like a dickhead again. You shouldn't do things based on fear. Bill Burr is held hostage by his son's school teacher into saying what they want him to say, because this woman has the power to determine what schools their son is let into. But based on the rules of this world's universe, Bill Burr is 100% in the right. I have a sensitivity to woke stuff that probably makes me more inclined to relate to this film. So I'm a little biased there, perhaps. I get very defensive when I think that freedom of speech or freedom of expression is being infringed upon. And recently I've had people in my life calling me up and saying that I'm problematic just because of a few satirical jokes that I've been making. It's just really unnecessary, needless, and ultimately a big waste of time. No one has their own clearly defined set of morals, they just go by what society tells them. And I know that sounds like something Mr. Robot would say, but it's kind of fucking true at the moment.
I mean, I don't jerk off to little kids, but...
The overarching story of Bill Burr coming to terms with his anger issues is heartfelt, I'd say. I mean, I know it's coming from a real place because I've seen his stand-up and he talks about his anger issues a lot in that. He talks about his deep love for his family and what he fears his anger issues may reap upon them. So in a lot of ways, I do appreciate this story and I do definitely relate to it as well. I take it as a story about someone looking at the world around him and saying, okay, they can be arseholes if they want, they can be terrible and toxic, but I'm not going to let that get to me and affect my family life. That's what I draw from it. And it is something I definitely need to do because after a little bit of doom scrolling on TikTok, I get so pissed off at the world. Even though I criticise a lot of it, it isn't one-sided, it isn't just man bad. There's a whole scene where Bobby Cannavale confronts his wife for being this cold woman the whole movie, making Bobby Cannavale feel like a prisoner in his own home. And I know, well, oh, this is just the male victim complex, and I get people will see that side of it, but also try and empathise with where it's coming from. But just for a minute, ignoring whoever you think is in the right in this scenario, there's a really good moment in this film where they have to frame Bobby Cannavale's wife from such an angle that makes her seem terrifying, and for what it's going for, it does a really effective job because it is quite frightening. Looking at that character specifically, she is a borderline sociopath, and that kid of theirs is a right little shit. Just a terrible way to raise a kid, like, yeah, no discipline ever because it's mean, fuck you. Sorry, I'm getting angry again.
Alright, you stumpy little...
As for that misogynistic conversation they have in the car, I really can't talk about that without looking like a complete hypocrite. I'd say it's okay for men to express how horny they can be as long as they are respectful towards women where it counts. Like, if you have too many of those conversations, you might run the risk of objectifying women. But you have to remember that girls do it to boys too. They go, oh yeah, I'd like to ride his schlong. Oh yeah, baby. Remember, it is just a little bit of fun at the end of the day. And the Caitlyn Jenner bit did make me laugh, not because it was like Caitlyn Jenner or any of that, because that's another one of those topics that's become like the trite thing for comedians to talk about, kind of. It's more so the fact that it's such a taboo thing to talk about, and then to have Bill Burr like, what? I didn't say anything bad. Then it cuts to him just saying, is Caitlyn Jenner's like dick still in a jar or some shit? It is quite funny, just that juxtaposition. When you have all of this tension built up from you can't joke about this, only just to have some ridiculously offensive things said about it, it just makes me laugh that. There have been plenty of times where my family have been having these in-depth serious discussions on politics, like say they're talking about racial issues and the war in the Middle East, and then I'll just chime in with the most ridiculously abhorrent like quotation ever, just fucking nuke them all, because that's just funny to me.
This company is now a gender-neutral, carbon-neutral 21st century lifestyle brand.
I won't deny that this movie is anti-woke porn, and that there's a high probability that the reason that I connect and relate to this so much is because of this inherent disdain I seem to have of these passive-aggressive, toxic people. It's like when someone who has an irrational hate boner against Elon Musk or Donald Trump or the right watches Don't Look Up and goes, oh, this is so relatable and so good, and really it's just trite garbage. If you want to call this the anti-woke equivalent of Don't Look Up, then I guess that's somewhat of a fair comparison. I'd still say that this is a much better movie though. It does have somewhat of a soul because of all of that personal stuff that Bill Burr puts into it. It does have at least one heartfelt emotional through line.
But I want you to know,
I'm not going to spread my anger onto these kids, and you're not going to have to deal with it anymore, okay?
Just as some closing comments, I will say that there is other media that is equally as overt, if not more so, that garners critical acclaim because it's critiquing what is popular to critique. Like, I enjoy The Boys, but there is no subtlety or nuance in that show anymore. But that receives acclaim because it is critiquing what is socially acceptable to critique.
And remember to fucking subscribe.
Get off the stage, you disgusting fat fuck. 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 Get off the stage, you disgusting fat fuck.